In the real estate market, from a rate perspective, the worse the economy is, kind of your better your rates are going to be, if you will. Like if negative numbers in the economy of negative employment numbers where there's a lot of job loss and unemployment goes up and we've got, headed to a recession, rates come down.
You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, your go-to source for all things Canadian real estate. Hello and welcome back to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. My name is Paul Stevenson. I am a Level 2 mortgage agent. I'm joined, as always, by David Warren, owner at Referral Mortgages, mortgage agent Level 2. And here we are, David. It's April 29th, 2025. Election happened yesterday. When you're listening to this, 2 days ago. Big numbers guy. 2 days ago. How you feeling, Dave? How's the morning? What's going on over
there? Morning's good. I was up a little later than usual watching the results come in. For a lot of people, kind of just surprising the split in certain areas and things like that between and some of the parties not doing as well as expected, like NDP's losing their official status and both Jagmeet and Polyev actually losing their seats. Their own ridings, which is pretty surprising. I mean, what a fifth term Liberal Party, actually almost a majority, but I guess when this airs, we'll know for sure exactly how many seats and whether they actually do push through a majority because there's still ballots being counted as we're recording this. But
yeah, we're always living in the past. We record the day before, people listen to it like, what are these idiots talking about? Like, But yeah, no, we were actually watching on Amazon Prime last night. Prime had a kind of a live stream of what's happening, and I actually felt the coverage was pretty good. Like, typically like it kind of mimicked the US election. Like I find the US election is always like kind of a bit of a spectacle. They have the updated tickers and this and that. I found in the past, at least maybe I just haven't paid as much attention, but I always felt like in the past it wasn't that exciting to watch, I guess, that engaging. So it was good to see that. They kind of upped the game there. But yeah, Mark Carney, former governor, the Bank of Canada and Bank of England, has been elected as Canada's new prime minister. Housing policies, that's kind of the big thing. That's what we care about. That's what we were wanting to know what each candidate was doing. So just kind of summarizing the new Liberal leadership housing policy. So they have a Build Canada Homes initiative. So it's a cornerstone of Mr. Carney's platform, the BCH initiative. It's aiming to address the housing crisis by a few things. One is they want to double the housing construction, so targeting nearly 500,000 new homes annually. Okay. They want to establish the BCH, so a federal entity to oversee affordable housing development, including on public lands. They're allocating $25 billion for prefabricated housing and $10 billion for affordable housing projects. And they want to eliminate GST on new homes under $1 million for first-time buyers. These are all proposals. Like none of these have taken effect immediately. These are just what they're suggesting they will do in power. Hopefully, some of these things are going to come into play. Any of that, like I know we talked about the 500,000 homes, the tradespeople, like that's kind of the overall initiative. Is there anything else, I guess, in the policy or that they announced outside of housing that you think is likely to come into fruition?
Well, I think to your point that, it's kind of like, similar to budget season. This platform isn't, it's not, legislation. It's an idea around what they're looking at doing. I think a lot of it's going to come down to what happens with the US and kind of the first order of business is figuring out this trade issue with the US and getting us back on course there. Because if we have to forced to increase spending in military in other areas that weren't in that proposal or that platform in that 130 billion, we're supposed to be spending 2.5% of our GDP, I believe it is, which is an increase of 80 billion to our spending so that would obviously wipe away most of what was promised in the latest platform by any of the parties. So depending on what those negotiations entail with the US, I think will strip away some of those platform initiatives that were spoken about anyways. So I don't think anything can really happen from a spending perspective until things are sorted out with the US.
Yeah, so does that lead you to believe that'll be sorted sooner rather than later? I mean, I believe Canada has to be one of the the biggest sticking points right now with the US, right? Canada and China, I would imagine, are the two kind of main sticking points with the trade wars.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the USMCA of, with Canada, US, Mexico, obviously that needs to be renegotiated immediately and figuring that out. But if it comes with that price tag of, you know, the US wants Canada to spend more on military. They want more to spend more at the border. They want, all of these. And so if that tick list is fully ticked off, that raises our spending upwards of, you know, like I said, 80 billion on the military alone is what that figure has been earmarked as. So, that wipes away kind of a lot of initiatives, because we can't just add that to what was already proposed for spending. Otherwise, we're in dramatic territory for deficits. So, yeah, certainly the U.S. is and that tariff issue is first order business for sure. In my and it has to be. I mean, that's what the whole campaign was railroaded basically by Trump and what he's doing in the States with this tariff stuff. And I think that really kind of made it more about the US and about Canada in some ways for this election cycle.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time in a very long time, if ever, that we've had two kind of lifetime politicians running 66% of the North American market, like with Carney and Trump, who are both not lifetime politicians, both come from kind of a business background where those negotiations typically are happening. So hopefully that this allows them to have maybe some, outside of the box conversations, maybe that haven't happened in the past that can come to some resolution. But I think we've seen, at least in the equity market, we've seen the turmoil this has caused over the last month and a half. And I think everyone on both sides of the border would benefit from these things ending sooner rather than later. So hopefully we can get there. What do you think? Like, how do you think this this change is going to impact in your opinion? Like, what effect is this going to have on the real estate market, especially in Ottawa?
It's so hard to say. I mean, there's still the the big issue that we just spoke about, the tariffs. So before it really affects anything in the real estate market, but so long as our bonds are elevated, we've seen them come up 30 basis points in the month of April with all this tariff talk. It was down to in the 2.4 range, and now we're up in, I think it's 2.79 roughly. So we've seen fixed rates jump back up into the fours mostly. Uninsured conventional has been there already, but yeah, I mean, really, I think until any of that, and like you said, talking about the equities market, I mean, that all plays into it for with the bond market. So until that's kind of stabilized and brought back down, I think we're going to still maintain those elevated rates. But most of the um, major Canadian banks, I think it's four of the six, are expecting, as of right now at least, that June there would be a decrease of a quarter point, or I think by the end of the year another half point. Scotia is the only one. I believe Scotiabank is the only one that's expecting it to stay as it is right now for bank prime and the overnight lending rate through the end of 2025, but then further decreases in 2026 as TD, RBC, BMO, and I forget, I think maybe CIBC are expecting another half point by the end of 2025. So I think all that to say is, really kind of depends on how long and how quickly we can resolve the tariff issue and how that impacts our economy further from a recessionary standpoint. Because that's really the main, like we've talked about in the past, almost ad nauseum, but that's really one of the only levers that the Bank of Canada has is changing the overnight lending rate, affecting bank prime and those variable rate mortgages.
Yeah, so there's some other key takeaways from that kind of Bank of Canada market survey, I guess. So some of the main takeaways aside from the bank's kind of predictions was the recession risk. So they're saying there's a 40% probability of Canada entering a recession within the next 12 months. From an inflation outlook, the total CPI inflation is expected to hover around 2.4% by the end of 2025, easing to 2% by the end of 2026. For growth expectations, they said real GDP is forecasted at 1% for 2025, 1.7% for 2026. Interest rate risks, Nearly 45% of respondents in this survey see risks tilted toward lower interest rates. Output gap, about 77% believe the Canadian economy currently has a negative output gap, indicating GDP is below potential. And the bond yields, 2-year, 5-year, and 10-year Canadian bond yields are projected to stay in the 2.5% to 3% range through 2025. Now, this is a survey, so these are not, this is kind of the general public's expectation of what's going to happen. But one thing that did come out, Dave, I don't know if you saw it, but this was a government report that came from Horizons Canada about the direction of Canada in the future, in the coming years. Just, again, this is all hypothetical, but this is coming from the government office. So these are the top points. It says, Horizons Canada report warns of a grim future where prosperity declines, class mobility vanishes. Class mobility being, going from lower class, middle class, etc. And intergenerational wealth becomes essential to afford a home. So it's very interesting. Like, obviously, with this new leadership, the experience, at least, that is suggested is the experience with the Bank of Canada, with the Bank of England. So the hope is to right the ship, that there would be some economic change that would, benefit the overall economy in Canada. I just don't know what to expect, I guess, moving forward. It felt like the last 4 years, at least we kind of had an idea. Whether you liked it or not, we kind of had a good idea as to what was happening. I feel like right now we're in kind of this bizarre world where nobody, there's no real clear picture of what's to come. Like with the tariffs, with now the elections happened, at least that was one big ball in the air. But where things land in the next 3 to 4 years is going to be very interesting from an economic and on our side, obviously from a housing standpoint, because I don't know about you, but I have not seen, at least in this spring market, a slowdown. Like, Easter is always kind of that pinnacle turning point where people are kind of out, the weather turns. There seems to be more people out shopping, and that has remained the same. Like a lot of people getting pre-approved, a lot of people shopping. This is transfer time as well for people in the military and RCMP. So still a lot of movement happening. I don't think this is going to have any impact on the housing market aside from maybe the rate side of things. But as we've learned over the years, rates don't have a massive impact on transactions. So, like, what do you see happening, Dave, in the next, say, 2 to 4 years, both with housing, but also on the economic side?
I mean,
Very long-winded question.
yeah. I mean, if based on that article that released that, it was kind of a warning, if you will, of what could be worst case scenario. I mean, if any of that comes to fruition of kind of that massive slowdown or recession, et cetera, that's going to drop rates dramatically, but it's also going to impact people's employment and their savings. But what we have seen in the most recent history of rates dropping in the real estate market, from a rate perspective, the worse the economy is, kind of your better your rates are going to be, if you will. Like if negative numbers in the economy of negative employment numbers where there's a lot of job loss and unemployment goes up and we've got, headed to a recession, rates come down. And so what we even saw during COVID and things like that is that those that still maintain their employment and feel and have the savings set aside, they take advantage of those lower rates. They're refinancing or they're transferring and they're locking in those lower rates. And that's when people are moving. And so there's two sides to it. The economy is going to, if that came to fruition of what that warning in that article is, it will lead to, from a housing side of things, lead to substantially lower rates and us potentially seeing the 2% again, which then drives the housing market as far as activity and it picking up. Again, we saw that during COVID. We saw economy come to a standstill. There was a temporary raise in unemployment, but uncertainty of where things are going and tariffs can play into that almost, and kind of be that driving factor to that. So really in the kind of using the US term of that first 100 days, they're talking about today, I think, is Trump's 100th day in office, and the U.S. kind of uses that as like a measuring stick of that 100 days in office. It'll be interesting to see that over that first 100 days, and with the new government and them having a renewed mandate, what that transitions to, and if things can be negotiated and hammered out with the U.S. Maybe that adds some stability in the market and really kind of helps to stabilize things.
Same government, new leadership, David.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I just feel like it's that's why I kind of just shrug my shoulders, because I really have no idea. Like, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic, but we'll see what happens. You gotta, that's all you can really do, is be hopeful and optimistic. All you can do as a Canadian is get out and vote, and then you just gotta just hope for the best after that.
Your home is one of your biggest investments, and the team at Big Westboro can help you protect it. Our expert brokers will find the perfect coverage to keep your home and belongings safe. Call 613-239-5792 or visit thebig.ca/Westboro for a free quote. Think big. Protect what matters most. Are you trying to grow your mortgage business? CENTUM has the tools and support to help you take your business to the next level. Get access to everything from free unlimited custom marketing to daily direct pay. Find out what your business can do with CENTUM. Learn more at joincentum.ca. Are you thinking of buying or selling a residential property? Relationships are at the heart of every real estate transaction. At Geltin Poirier Avocat Lawyers, we love to bring residential buyers, sellers, agents, lenders, mortgage brokers, and the law together to close the deal for you. For an effortless client experience that opens doors, call us at 613-744-4488 or visit our website at geltinpoirierlaw.ca. Let's get to the heart of your deal.
Well, I think, kind of going back a number of years ago when prices were kind of on that crazy incline and people bidding 100,000 over asking and things like that, we would always say to people, don't buy based on where the economy is, based on what your needs. Buy, if you're looking at buying a home, buy based on your personal needs and where you see your life, of your wants and desires and goals and plans, and don't base it around the overall arching economy or globe. You can't, you personally can't change things with regards to how Trump's going to impact, tariffs or things like that. You could plan and you could set savings aside for worst case scenarios. However, if buying a home is a goal, if you need housing, think about it in the long term, not am I going to make a profit on that equity or on a appreciation today or next year. Look at it 5 and 10 years down the line and buy according to that. And so really with, you mentioning that you're not sure where things are headed, and I agree. I mean, none of us do. I mean, even the chief economist and where the market is, talking about where the rates are going to go this year, they don't fully know. There's so many external factors
Experts
that are
all
going to play into
disagree,
that.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, base your decisions around your situation. Set up your roadmap for savings. Set up your roadmap of what you want to do with your life. If it's buying a home as part of that, just get prepared. And so when you see something you like, regardless of where rates are at, ignore that. Again, haven't said it in a while, so I'll say it, but date the rate, marry the home. Worry about where things are right now and make sure that home and that payment fits your budget, but don't let the outside noise influence what your personal goals are. Kind of keep trucking along, set that roadmap, set that savings roadmap, or, if it's paying down debt or whatever it may be, have that and stick to that, and kind of keep your eye on the prize in that regard.
Yeah, one thing, I'm sure you see it as well, but one thing that's for certain is that when people qualify for X amount, they almost always are shopping up to that amount. Like,
Mm.
it's more frequent than not that if you tell someone they're pre-approved for 600,000, they're looking at properties of, 575 to 600 to 650 to
And
7. Like,
I was going to say, and 650, and then they
yeah.
come back with a purchase agreement at 650 and wonder, what, you mean I can't get this? Well, no, I told you what your maximum was.
Yeah, but even people people I pre-approved, let's say 4 months ago, that are kind of out shopping, and then, rates came down there for a few weeks. So, giving them that new pre-approval and say, oh, your affordability has increased by whatever, 30,000, 40,000. They're redoing their search and they're now looking at homes that are 30, 40,000 more. Like, it instantly pushes that needle. So I'm not suggesting that they're doing anything wrong by doing that. It's their own financial decision, but more so to your point, like, if the rates come down and people can afford 850 instead of 700, that's 100% going to push up the average home price. Like, it just is. So, like you said, in a weakened economy, if rates are lower, from a housing market standpoint, it's likely going to drive things further up that ladder, as opposed to having kind of a balanced market where rates are around where they are now, where we're seeing that incremental growth of 3%, 4% a year, where it's not that, 21, 19, et cetera. So I think this is kind of more where we want to be, in that 4 to 4.5% range. If this was the rates all the time, I think we'd constantly have a balanced market. However, that's not the case. There's so many other factors that go into the bonds, Bank of Canada's decisions, et cetera, that are outside of the actual housing market, but they influence it directly. So these are all things that that's why I'm saying I have no idea what's going to happen, because of all these outside factors that are outside of our control and therefore almost impossible to predict. So, we take it day by day. Clients are always kind of asking, like, what are you seeing happening? And it's really been a conversation day to day lately. Like, here is where things stand today. Here are the things that may impact it in the coming weeks or months. Here's the next Bank of Canada rate announcement, et cetera, and just give them as much information as I can and have an informed discussion about it. But nobody has that crystal ball, other than Greg. So, we got to just give them the insights, let them know what we're seeing on our side, and then, kind of move forward together in the best way for them, specific in their situation. Everyone's situation is different, and that changes the advice that we give also. So I find it frustrating at times. Like, it's like when you get a challenging file and you can't find a solution. I know we both find that frustrating. It's like a puzzle you can't solve. But in this case, it's kind of the same thing with these conversations, trying to navigate them without having a clear picture. It does make it more challenging on our end.
Agreed. Nothing to add.
I think I might slide into the mood boost, Dave. I don't know about you, but
I agree.
I feel like we're there today. Great. We have some great guests coming on. We should note that in the coming weeks. We won't announce who they are, but in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we got some fantastic, knowledgeable, experienced guests that'll knock your socks off. Here we go. Number 1, mood boost. 3. Number 1. What did Mars ask Saturn? Hey, why don't you give me a ring sometime?
Okay.
Number 2, why was the computer cold? Left its windows open. Yeah, the old Microsoft joke. And last but not least, number 3, my doctor said I had type A blood, but it was a type O.
Okay.
Type O. Yeah.
You know what? I'd say all those were pretty good.
Yeah, not bad. They'll do. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back, like we said, with some great guests. We want to say thank you as well to our amazing sponsors for supporting what we do here. Guertin Poirier, Avocat Lawyers, Big Insurance in Westboro, and CENTUM. Thank you always for your support. Thank you for listening, everyone. New episodes are released every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And be sure to check out our social accounts for some exclusive shorts and great info. We're just giving you the goods. We'll see you next week, everyone. Deuces.
Deuces.